Hi everyone, my name is Maria Carolina Porcino. I am from the Federal University of Espírito Santo, and with Kitty Rebecca Finardi, professor at the same university, I'm going to present a study called Globalization and Internationalization in ELT, Methodology, Technology, and Language Policies at a Crossroad in Brazil. The aim of this study is to reflect on the effects of globalization and internationalization in education in general and in English language teaching and learning in particular. Globalization contributed to the emergence of information society and knowledge economy, which in turn contributed to the internationalization of higher education, which is defined as the process of integrating international, intercultural, or global dimension in the mission, function, or proposal of a higher education institution. In this scenario, universities are viewed as valuable assets for their intellectual capital, which is now seen as an important import and export product in the knowledge economy. Another effect of globalization is related to the technological advances, especially with regard to new information and communication technologies, which enabled a more democratic and inexpensive flow of information, products, and services, which in a globalized economy and world means millions of users connected to mobile devices, internet, and social networks. The new flow of information and the affordances of ICTs changed the way we express ourselves in this new global and local scenario, both virtually and in person. ICTs also changed the way we produce and acquire information and knowledge, as shown, for example, by the number of massive online open courses offered by world-class universities. Autonomy in learning is considered a characteristic of postmodern education. We can say that the internet has given more access to information, and social networks have given more voice to thousands of people in the information era. And both internet and social networks brought more autonomy in the sub, not only for information but also for expression channels. The number of people who exercise this autonomy in pursuit of knowledge through massive online courses and their voice in the pursuit of expression through Facebook and other social networks is evidence of this new way of relating to and with the world, with the internet and globalization. The changes in society and in the forms we communicate and produce knowledge do not always reach schools and universities with the same speed. They reach Rome's, for example, though they probably reach higher education faster than schools due to the university intellectual capital appeal in the knowledge economy. The internationalization of higher education affects and is affected by globalization. And it always affects the status and use of English as a foreign language, international or academic language. Finardi and Ortiz, for example, analyzed the internationalization process of two Brazilian universities with different backgrounds and motivations to go international. They concluded that the greatest obstacle for the internationalization of higher education in these universities was the low level of English proficiency that prevents both academic mobility out and in. Pinheiro and Finardi analyzed Brazilian internationalization policies enacted in the Science Without Borders and English Without Borders programs. The Science Without Borders program can be described as a program of academic mobility out. And the reason for its low uptake for grants offered by this program was mainly due to the lack of English proficiency of Brazilian candidates. In order to fill in this gap identified in the internationalization of higher education process in Brazil, the government launched in 2012 the English Without Borders program, whose goals was to correct a historical deficiency in teaching English as a foreign language. Pinheiro and Finardi concluded that a greater investment in English language teaching and learning, both in basic education and in higher education, is needed to drive internationalization in Brazil. Finardi, Prebianca, and Mom argue that in the current information society, both English as an international language and digital literacy are passports to information access and social inclusion, as well as for capital formation, as is stated by Warshauer, and defined as the ability of individuals to generate benefits by means of their personal relationships or social practices. Despite these changes in societies and in the role of English and technology need, there are barriers that seem to resist to the effects of globalization, as for example in the case of the resistance to include ICTs in the education as shown by Finardi and Teixeira, who analyzed teacher training course for the use of ICTs in traditional classes. These authors concluded that the greatest obstacle for the use of ICTs in classrooms in Brazil is not related to the limited access to equipment, since universities and schools are in general well equipped, but rather they conclude that the obstacle is related to the broad access to ICTs, to the use of equipment and technologies critically to generate benefits for users and their environments through this use. In this sense, we agree with them, who conclude that there are needs to be more investment and effort in teacher training and education for the critical use of ICTs for a 21st century aligned education. Regarding the role of technology in education, we can say that today, more than ever, technologies not only act as a pedagogical support, but they change the very concept of teaching and education. The historical development of language teaching, particularly the teaching of English as a foreign language, is inseparable from the trajectory of uses of technology for educational purpose. The different language policies and technologies used with different English teaching methodologies in diachronic and synchronic ways served different purposes and objectives in Brazil. Yet, the analysis of language policies, technologies, and methodologies in this study suggests that globalization and the advent of internet changed the way we teach, learn, view, and use English in Brazil. It seems that technology is no longer a mere supporting tool for teaching and learning, and that English is no longer a mere foreign language in this gradually more globalized and international scenario in Brazil. The English teaching evolution throughout history seems to sum up a cyclical succession of approaches and methods that sometimes oppose and sometimes complement each other. That's what Leffa, 1998, calls a synthesis and antithesis without ever reaching synthesis. The practice of this synthesis, however, seems to be driven nowadays by the both method conceptions, which argue in favor of the no hierarchy between methods, to conclude that any method alone is capable to explain the complexity of language learning, suggesting therefore that we should work in a context of hybridity that meets the learner's needs during the process of language teaching and learning. Here is a summary of the main methods and approaches used to teach English. The first one is the grammar translation method, which focus is on the reading ability, and this methodology uses the blackboard as a support and the literary books as a key element, since this focus is on the reading ability. The direct method, on the other hand, has a focus on oral skills and uses pictures and posters as visual aids, since in this method there is no other language used but the target language, so it helps students and teachers as unknown vocabulary. The reading approach again is focused in the reading ability, and it uses didactic books as technologies, and they are essential tools to this approach. The audiolingual method invests in the oral skill, and especially in the pronunciation. It uses audio players, recorders, overhead projectors, computers, in what we call the behaviorist call. Here, the technology assumes a role as a protagonist, and in some moments substitutes the relationships learner-teacher, learner-learner. In the communicative approach, the focus is in develop the learner's communicative competence. And here, in this approach, since today we use computer, internet, and mobile devices as technologies. And here the technology has a function of give the learner autonomy. It gives learners autonomy to find information and to learn autonomously. It is a source of information and a mean of communication, a channel of communication. In conclusion, we understand that as a consequence of globalization and internationalization, and also in the ICT's advance, it is required more critical methodologies, especially in the teaching of English. Methodologies like the content language integrated learning and the task-based approach that seem to be more appropriate to the conditions we have nowadays and are more likely to use the technologies. What we have to bear in mind is that we should use technologies and methodologies in a critical way, through a critical perspectives, because technologies represent a new concept of using and learning a language. And we reaffirm here English and technology as key languages to promote inclusion, citizenship participation, and development in the globalized world. So that's it. Thank you for your attention, and here are our email addresses for further questions or comments. Thank you.